Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of Downstage with Bryan and Hayden. I'm not sure if this is essentially the first episode of March. Granted, it's not. We didn't film this at the first day of March, but I'm trying not to have this as a monthly show now. Past couple weeks have been not good for me, just from a mental standpoint and physical standpoint. Uh, Hayden had his own stuff going through stuff. Mostly writing his own show. Well, shows, I should say. Shout out to him. So, and also, February hasn't always not been the best of months in terms of like physicality and that effect. But yeah, but we're back. Hopefully, again, for more than for one episode for this month. So, yeah. But during that time, I got kicked off a film set, another major.
So, gee, Brian, tell us how this happened.
Yeah, so a couple weeks ago, I'm not a couple weeks ago, but like last week or so, uh, and I like how I kind of like just jumped into the whole. Oh, hey, by the way, it's like it's been a rough couple of weeks, but I kicked off a film set, uh, so yeah, last week. I had just came from the DMV, right? DMV is like pure hell to go, and especially New York City. And as I was coming home, because the stupid DMV had a long line outside, I'm like, you know what? I'm not gonna wait like 30 minutes just to already miss my appointment already. I'm like, okay, I'm in Coney Island. I haven't done my walks in Coney Island in a while. I love doing my walks there. And I just see all around this thing. I was like, oh, we're filming in Coney Island. I'm like, okay, they're filming in Coney Island. I kind of doubt I'll be like walking along the sidewalks. I see like all the tractors, all the trailers, all that stuff around that area. And sure enough, I walk down to the boardwalk, right? I'm like, oh, there's a whole like school of people just like filming there. I'm like, you know what? If it's okay with anybody else, I'll just walk down. And I'm like, I walk down. And sure enough, like the PA saw me, they saw me and a couple other people. They didn't even stop. Stop. I was like, no, 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 don't walk up. Don't walk there. Walk down there. And I just get to the where the set is. I thought they were actually filming like right across from where, like maybe a couple of feet above me. I mean, a couple of feet, ahead of me, because they had this whole like, all the stuff that was like kind of like making it sound like they were filming in one part of the area. Turns out they were actually filming right next to me. And I think maybe either one of the ADs or one of the people on the set saw all of us kind of like standing around. It's like, you're not part of the set. You're not dressed right. Get the hell out of here. And I'm like, okay, gee, it's like, I am an actor, so you don't have to ask me about getting it, I am an actor, so you don't have to ask me for, you could ask me more polite. And as I'm just walking away, I'm like, really hope I didn't film because it just the only thing they said was we're filming for an HBO Max show. And I'm like, okay. So I'm like thinking about all these HBO Max shows that were like, okay, so maybe and it was supposed to be like maybe even in like these like very 90s era like clothing. I'm like, ooh. And I'm like, ooh, maybe I actually got away at like I got chased off the Penguin set because it in New York City, chances are if it's a Batman related product, if they are filming in New York City, they usually do use Coney Island or some part of Brooklyn to make it more seedier. And shout out to that show, Gotham. Uh, and I was like, no, no, no. So unfortunately, it was not the Penguin show, sadly. It was something much worse. Sex in the City. I'm sorry. And just like that, dot, dot, dot. Yes. So maybe the AD actually was doing me a favor, and then if I happened to see Sarah Jessica Parker in person, I would be screaming in other terror. So I think they were doing me a favor.
it is crazy just how easy it can be just to like walk around New York and just stumble onto film sets.
Yeah, you know, the one of my what was it? One of my former yeah my one of my film professors said there was a reason why New York was like the transportation hub of entertainment because basically not only would New York City be like a very big place to film, but if you're filming in, maybe in Philadelphia or in Jersey or even down further down, like, Virginia, getting this stuff from New York would just be like an easy breeze because it's like this is like the reason why it'd be like an entertainment hub. Compare that to like say LA or I guess Georgia now, since Georgia is kind of like stepping up to be another uh like place to film and yeah place to film. But other than that, yeah, it's like it's so easy to come across a film set and so hard to come across a film set because sometimes you're just like saying, oh, you know, you might be here a day later or a day before. I'm like, it's like if I was just only here a day earlier, I probably would have seen some celebrity or something like that. But nope, uh, it's kind of very easy to go across from whatever portion of New York City you're in and happen to stumble across a film related thing, when I was in college and when I was attending college in Lower Manhattan, it was so easy to see an SVU filming somewhere or elementary show filming somewhere or Bull or something to that effect. Any numerous CBS or NBC shows. Now it's just much more harder because they seem to like either do it later at night when no one's really around or film when it is like the conditions are like really really rough. uh yeah, and like again, like Hayden was saying, it's like so easy to find a film set because even then, like a couple of weeks ago, I randomly came across the Equalizer uh uh set. Well, not set, but all the trucks and all the everything. So I just saw the production set. There we go. So yeah, it is so easy to find so easy to come across a film set, but at the same time, it's also so hard to be in a film set because they usually keep everyone at bay, all that stuff. But then there are
Mhm.
times where it's like they kind of doing it in an open space anyway, and they kind of like, it's if it's an open area, well,
Yeah, like sometimes you might have like I know about through sunsets where there were actually some people who are like, "Hey, can you guys just walk the other way, please? We're keeping this area closed off." And then you get some kind of film sets where you don't really have anyone telling you what to do. You just
hmm
kind of can just walk right through. Like actually, two quick stories. So when I was younger, before I had officially moved to New York and I was visiting with my family, my dad and I had gone to this museum. It was like this naval vessel that was converted into a museum called the Intrepid. It was pretty fun. And we were walking back, and we happened to be walking right through some kind of set for a movie or TV or TV show. We didn't know what it was. There was no indicators to what they were specifically filming, but it was pretty clear they're filming something here. And we technically aren't supposed to be walking through here, but no one told us to like get out of the way. And we kind of walked through, kind of lingered around, looked over, and eventually we're just like, okay, let's not push our luck. Let's just cross the other side. Tra la la la. Yep. But I think the one that really sticks in my mind the most as being the most unique was when I was going to where the Stella Adler Studio of Acting before they had moved and they were still on like 27th Street.
Hmm.
And I see what looks like a homeless encampment or something. It just like set up shop all around, all on that street, pretty much, like right, like where the acting studio is. And I'm just like, what happened? This was not here yesterday. Okay, this is an interesting development. So I'm just like, okay, well, just gonna go to classes. And then years later, I'm catching up on the show Mr. Robot because
There
I
we
had
go.
really fallen
I was
behind on
like,
that show. So I finally got around to watching it again. And then I see that location with that homeless encampment, and it dawned on me, holy crap! I was basically walking through the set of Mr. Robot.
yeah.
Because
Uh,
there were no film trucks around, none of those trailers around because they were using that set for the filming because that's the street you see the character Elliot walking down, I think with his sister, or it was just him, if I remember the episode right. And he's like kind of having his like monologue about stuff. So it's like I'm just like, did a homeless encampment just like spring up here overnight or something? And like, no, it was actually the freaking film set for Mr. Robot. I still can't get
yeah,
over that.
yeah. It's fun because one of the fondest memories of going to my father at work was them actually using their school to be the set for like one of the TV shows that they filmed in New York City at the time. It was for PBS, so it wasn't like a PBS like entertainment show. I mean, it was an educational show, but it was a scripted series. It was a show called Ghostwriter, right? And basically the whole thing was that some a group of Brooklyn kids find a ghost. He writes to them, Ghostwriter, hence the show. And one of the days where they actually were filming outside of his school was basically, if I can't remember correctly, basically one of the characters had to investigate some sort of like a guy stealing money, and the police were going to do a sting. And then basically, to make a long story short, I watched essentially the set, like people make essentially all this like a bag of money. So when the character gets like attacked or tackled by one of the cops, the bag of money just essentially flies into the air and just floats all the way, in the air. And then afterwards, I was like, oh, and it's like I grabbed the fake money. I'm like, ooh, I could, keep that and like keep that for later. But I remember actually being like very young.
I like to think you just took this money and you're just like went to a store to like get like I don't know a bagel or something. You just hand him and it's like, oh, this is fake, dude.
Well, it's New York City. No one really knows as if it's fake until it's like you could literally hand somebody a dollar and they won't really notice that it's a dollar until it's like 5 seconds later. It's like, 'cause, like I'd be usually getting like a water bottle or something like that, and I'd be give someone a dollar for to pay it, and then they usually just think it's like, oh, it's like $5. Like, no, it's a dollar. I'm like, oh, okay, go ahead. And but yeah, it's fun to be in New York City and then stumbling upon some movie set and then finding out, oh, it's a movie set or a TV set of a show or a movie that I've come to know. Or, it's much more fun to do that. Like years and but yeah, speaking of movies and speaking of but yeah, speaking of movies and speaking of movie stars, um,
Nice segue.
yes, I was trying to figure out that segue. We actually have a goodwill story going on here. So a couple of days ago, there was a random act of kindness from one modern sort to another famous artist, Chance the Rapper. So according to Chance the Rapper, he was talking about how his daughter was on the flight, but his daughter was actually sitting away from him. And one shirt, I guess he was sitting right next to him, or sitting next or near him, was like he decided to give up his seat to Chance's daughter, so Chance's daughter could actually sit right next to her, right next to her father. I'm like, oh, that's actually pretty, nice. But what sells the story though is how like Chance is like it's like we both said thank you, and as he stands up, I realize it's the Martin Short, and oh, okay, I understand why. In the next thing, it's like his daughter was freaked out by the counter because she loved the movie The Santa Claus 3, in which Short plays Jack Frost. And to end the tweet, Chance says, "What an awesome person! Shout out to the Jack Frost." And I was like, I was so curious to know why he ends the thing as "shout out to the Jack Frost" or "shout out to Jack Frost." Like, I wasn't sure why, and then I realized, oh, his daughter loves the Santa Claus 3, even though the movie is a very uh, not as bad. I mean, it's not a very good movie. I mean,
Not as good as the other
it's
two.
good. It's not as good as the rest, but I mean, it's not as good as the first. There we go. And which is saying a lot comparing considering there was only like three movies and then that TV show. But yeah, I'm like reading this story. I'm like, it is amazing to see Jack Frost. God, this is okay. I can understand why he said shout out to Jack Frost because if there's a character that you become synonymous with, Martin Short is like, oh, people are like, I remember Martin Short from Three Amigos or Ed Grigley or if thanks to his role on Only Murders in the Building, uh, most recently that. But then there are people who will go all the way and like, oh, shout out to the one character that like is like the one saving grace from a very bad movie.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's nice when I read like celebrities, essentially celebrities doing goodwill stuff. And yeah, Martin Short is like a very, generous person from what I read and all and stuff like that too. And but it's just the whole notion to is like ending the tweet and going shout out to Jack Frost. I'm like, yeah, that's that like you made it as an actor if people are synonymous with the character you played in a role like in the character you played like 10, 20 years ago.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah, I don't have much to add to that.
yeah, but yeah, I don't know. I like it when I read stories like that. It just shows you that not all actors are still assholes. Uh,
Mhm.
there's still some generous people out there. And
Yeah.
speaking of generosity, or yeah, speaking of generosity, the weekend box office was really generous to Cocaine Bear, a movie that really a movie you really were to think, okay, Cocaine Bear, they'll probably make maybe 8 million, 10 million or so. It made over $20 million. $20 million about a bear who, mind you, in real life ingested a crap ton of cocaine and died a few hours later. Obviously, that's not the movie they got to do with that. Obviously, that's not the movie they got to do with the actual movie itself. So, and then making like over $20 million for a movie that's obviously something that's like not necessarily a parody, but also just like one of those movies that you kind of like. I call them the uh what the fuck movies, like that those movies that you just go, what the fuck am I watching? Like
Mhm.
Violent Night was a good what the fuck movie from a few months ago, where it's just like David Harbour as Santa in a very die-hard like situation. Like that's a movie where you go, fuck, I'm in. But Cocaine Bear, that's a movie where you go, okay, a bear high on cocaine, I'm in. Even though it's obviously not going to be based off the real life event, because again, they were like, how do we even make a movie about that? And sure enough, from what I've been hearing about it, it is so highly entertaining. They're yeah, highly entertaining is like the word that is being used for Cocaine Bear. But sadly, because of sadly, with cocaine, even though Cocaine Bear was like number one in the box office, the previous leader of that box office, Ant-Man and the Wasp, suffered a drop in their box office.
You could say they really shrunk their box office.
Yes. Oh, actually, I did not. Actually, it wasn't $20 million. I think it was over $30 million. Cocaine Bear. Yes.
Impressive.
Cocaine Bear made over $30 million, I think. Or actually, hang on. It may actually cocaine.
Did it go to 40?
Actually, hang on.
Are
I'm
we, are
usually
we just gonna keep raising this each time? Like each time we think it's
okay.
something, it's like, no, it's actually more.
No, it was $20 million. Okay. Okay. I was just trying to see what was $30 million. I think that might have been Quantumania. I'm not sure. Yeah. Quantumania earned $30 million over the weekend. 71.6 drop in its debut box office earnings, making it the worst second weekend drop for a superhero movie to open over $100 million. Cocaine Bear earned $8.7 million in the Thursday previews on its first day on Friday, surpassing 8.3 million earned by Quantumania on the same day. It is on track to open up expectation with 21.21 million dollars in domestic. Okay, so 21 million dollars for Cocaine Bear. Okay, that's the final draw on the actual numbers. Okay,
Uh, Going
so
once, going
twice.
twice, sold.
Okay, so I was just curious. Like I was just trying to figure out why it was like saying what came out. Okay, so Quantumania, right, is a better part of the thing. The first in phase 5 of Marvel's, I think, multiverse uh arc, or the Kane Dynasty arc, or whatever they gotta call it. I think it's gonna be called like the Kane Dynasty arc or the Kane Dynasty phase, that basically builds up Kane the Conqueror, and or Kane, or the multitude of Kanes, and really go lean into the whole time travelness that was set up at No Way Home, and kind of like hit home with Multiverse of Madness, and then really, I mean, not set up with No Way Home, set up with Endgame, then hit with No Way Home, and then with Multiverse of Madness. Like those three movies are kind of like the reason why the, and then with low key season 1 and all that stuff too. So damn, Marvel, it's like you don't even rest for like 1 second to figure out where you need to go with the time travelness.
Yeah,
But yeah,
they don't know how to take a break.
yes, and I think the break, and I think that's the reason why it suffered the biggest drop as it did, because currently it has saw a drop of 69.7% in its second week, meaning it still did good, but it still saw a drop in its previous, more than its previous predecessors. The closest that the apparently Marvel had that problem was with Black Widow, but Black Widow saw a drop in its first week with 67.8%. But because of the pandemic and because of the option to get the thing online, for the premium thing for Disney Plus premium service, whatever it was called, to watch it on the same day, there was that option. But the other drop that they had for Disney, for Marvel, was Love and Thunder, which fell 67.7% after opening, 144 million dollars. But the biggest box office drop in the genre was Dawn of Justice, which suffered 69.1%. So Dawn of Justice and Quantumania now hold the records for the biggest drop in box office, residuals, I guess. I mean, even though they did good, they're still doing good. They still, it is definitely a steep, if the movie just goes from, like, say, earning over $100 million over the next weekend, and then suddenly earning over like $30 million the following weekend. It definitely feels like with Marvel, it's a quantity over quality problem, especially if they're pushing out 3 movies sometimes 4 movies, but that was like only I think only for 1 year. Uh, 3 movies a year now, just to keep up with their timeline. And I think there is a reason why the timeline problem is just problematic. I mean, especially in film. It's like right now, to compare it to another thing, Star Wars and Star Trek, they haven't had a movie out in a while. Star Wars, it was 2019, and Star Trek was 2016. And they've been doing somewhat better on TV show on the television front because there's more stories to say on the television front rather than trying to figure out a story to tell, especially if it's a start of either a new trilogy or a one-off movie or something like that. But with Marvel, right, they're doing essentially I mean, like 3 movies a year, so 3 stories to tell, especially if that one story happens to be a origin story, or if they happen to add new characters into a new thing and all that stuff. You know, that's the problem, is like trying to do 3 movies a year and still get uh profit from those 3 movies a year. Obviously, they're still got to do good because again, it's Marvel, it's Disney. Even when Disney has fumbled hard with movie releases, they still made some money back, somewhat, and that's usually on uh what's it called, advertising, advertising campaigns and stuff like that too, or yeah, advertising campaigns or cross promotional things, stuff like that too. But I think there is a problem with Quantum Mania's drop, is that it is going to be showing that there is a drop not in quantity but in quality over yeah, like literally over Marvel's movies. Because again, I mean, not again, because before Quantum Mania, the last movie that they did release in theaters was Wakanda Forever, and that was 3.5 months 3.5 months ago.
Yeah, like I think the biggest problem Marvel is going to have is like there is such a burnout ever since Endgame, honestly, that they still have not been able to really just like recover from, in all honesty. Because you can see it in the quality of everything they've told story-wise ever since then, for the most part. And there have been a few exceptions. Like a great exception is, for the most part, Spider-Man No Way Home.
Yeah, even
That's a
though
good
that's
exception. I still think there were a few things that should have been retweaked a little bit with it, but generally that's been the one of the only exceptions to the like burnout of the Marvel like quality of stuff.
well, I mean, there's
Because
also
like Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, just like it definitely kind of had this moments where it just feels like they should have been reworking a good chunk of things here and there, especially with the fact that they bring in all these characters just to die. It's
hmm,
like
yeah.
it's like you're just doing it just for the sake of fan service instead of actually being using it as an interesting story platform or story springboard. Actually, is a better,
Yeah.
or like look at all the TV shows they tried to do, and most of them are just like lukewarm in terms of reception.
I mean, as someone who does watch the TV shows, right?
And also quality wise too, though, because I noticed the
Yeah.
quality of their writing for a lot of their shows is just very miss.
Again, this is
Because
coming
I
from
and also I think this is just their problem in general too, because I think like I think they know they have a burnout problem with their content. So I think they're purposely going with like untested writers because they're gonna be cheaper. Like
yeah.
sorry to say, but that kind of is like the name of the game, because like that's what they did with Captain Marvel. They went with like virtually untested people who had never worked on a big budget movie like this. Like they only did the small like short film kind of stuff, like nothing to this degree, to this caliber. And you can see that suffering in both the filmmaking and the writing of that story. That you can tell they were going cheap with it because they knew no one's really going to care about this one as much. People are going to see it just because it's got Marvel. And
Yeah,
because it's between Infinity War and Endgame, people are going to see it for that.
yeah,
And I think that's what they have in their heads. We can go cheaper because we're Marvel. People are going to watch our stuff regardless. And I think that's gone to their heads a bit. I think they've been able to get away with churning out cheap content.
yeah,
Like, and by cheap content, I mean content that isn't actually of quality and substance because they know they don't have to.
yeah. I mean, did we really need a
Even Ant-Man,
show?
it's like even Ant-Man, like one thing that bugged me the most about Ant-Man Quantumania was like in the trailer, we see, this big epic moment of Kang just like, knocking down, Ant-Man, and he's saying, "You thought you could beat me?" And he just says honestly, that epic line, I'm hearing the trailer, I'm like, this is epic. Of like, I don't have to win, we both just have to lose.
Yeah,
And but then it's like you actually watch the movie, and it's like, well, shit, like only Kang lost. Like technically Ant-Man won. Because like he gets what he wanted. Whereas like imagine if that movie ended differently. Whereas like both of them actually did lose. That would have actually
yeah.
been I actually would like the film even more if it did that. If it had the guts to actually do it. But no, no, can't do that.
From what I hear, that
Gotta
actually,
have that picturesque happy ending for some reason, even though it doesn't make sense
from what
in
I
terms of
hear,
the quote unquote science of the story.
from what I hear, it actually
Sorry,
did.
but
No, no. From what I hear, it actually did sound like they were going to go with that plan of having that kind of like downer ending, but they decided to change it like a couple of months before release because, like, oh, we don't want to have the first movie in our phase to end on a very bad note. I mean, bad note being like downer note. But even then, the first like Ant-Man, I mean, not the first Ant-Man, like the second Ant-Man ends with freaking Steve, God, Scott being trapped in the quantum realm for like only for a couple hours and coming out at the end of, I mean, coming out in
like
Endgame,
at the
finding out
beginning of
that,
Endgame, and it's like
yeah,
5 years later.
5 years later, out like Endgame, and it's like you could literally have that ending of a, oh, this is going to be a very down like a bad guy wins ending where it's just like, yes, you can have that, you can have Marvel, you can have that cake, can have that cake, you can eat it too, but also remember we're also creating uh a storytelling, and I think that's another thing with storytelling is that there's a lot of congestion in terms of in storytelling in Marvel, especially in Phase Four, where Phase Four really was about the grieving process and the not only the grieving process, but also the ramifications of what happened at the end of Endgame. Like with all the heroes coming together, with everyone coming together to fight Thanos, and then you had to think about all the ramifications of all that stuff. Is like, especially with that 5 year gap too, and then compare that to say, opening up uh the Kane saga or Kane Destiny thing, whatever they want to call it. It definitely sounds like they're going to write themselves in the corner and hope that people will just forget that they wrote themselves in the corner. And then suddenly it's like because there's a Marvel movie and stuff like that too, where it's just like, oh well, if you're not watching, this show or that or this movie, you won't understand what's going on.
You okay? I'll take over. But yeah, I agree with that point too. Marvel has definitely been writing themselves into like a lot of corners lately too, with like the way they've been doing these like TV shows, with the fact that they actually don't give a lot of them enough time to really tell the story that's needed. Like Falcon and the Winter
Yeah.
Soldier. I liked it aside from the villain because I thought it had potential. And it kind of, blundered that a bit. And like Loki, that's a show that's supposed to be 12 episodes for one season, but then for some reason they split it up into two. And I don't know, just some about that didn't necessarily, it felt like an odd place to just be like, oh, okay, stop here. Now, wait for the next season. And then WandaVision. That was supposed to be longer than it actually was. But then because of COVID, they had to rewrite and redo the whole thing, which
Yeah,
I'm not convinced. I'm actually not entirely convinced on that, to be honest, as their main reason for rewriting it, because it's like they had already initially filmed a lot of that early stuff for one thing with that live studio audience. So it's like, okay, well, boom, you already did that. I think pre-COVID, if I remember right.
yeah.
Because the rest of what happens after, there's no live studio audience reactions. Like they're not they only do that for like one or two episodes. Like
I think the
and
problem.
let's be honest, like there were easier ways to like be like, okay, we have to keep in mind COVID, but let's just make tiny changes here, not these big drastic changes where it's just like, oh no, let's keep everything so simplified. Let's not actually give our villain motivation, even though technically, Agatha isn't the villain. She's actually weirdly enough the hero, and Wanda's the
Yeah,
villain because she's the one
yeah.
holding an entire town hostage. And I still cannot get over why people defend Wanda when she's the villain of that story. Like
You know what?
that boggles my mind so much. It still boggles my mind to this day. The defense of Wanda when she's flat out a villain, and she is the villain in Doctor Strange: Multiverse of Madness.
You
Like,
know what?
sorry, no. Yeah,
Here's
it's because
why.
Elizabeth Olsen. That's it.
Yes. When you
Literally,
have
that's it. If it was, yeah,
when you have a hot woman or a hot actor playing the villain, or the act or the character that isn't perceived to be the villain and is perceived to be the hero, obviously they gotta have, because like the more had the same problem where it's like you should be at least like you should be against this guy because he launches attack on Wakanda, destroys a lot of the foundation, but at the same time you're like, shit, I'm actually rooting for this guy. You know, he's literally bringing up some good points. I'm like,
see,
and then,
well, see, that's actually a better villain type, a villain who
yeah,
actually has a lot of sense and logic, because then that actually brings complexity.
yes.
See, we can do it, Marvel. We can have complex villains.
I think the problem is that when they did WandaVision, I think what they were going to do was that originally it was going to be probably about the relationship between Wanda and Vision, but during the production and because of COVID and everything, they had to reformat. It's like, okay, and then they wrote themselves in the corner when they found out, and then when they realized, oh, by the way, Wanda enslaves a whole town to her, grip. How do we kind of like not only change that, but also kind of like show that she is in the wrong, and I mean she's in the right, and now is the one that's kind of like messing up everything, and doing the whole. It was her all along type of thing, and sure enough, I think the problem is with the storytelling. I think that's the problem is that the quality is because of the storytelling, and they are like. I think the problem is that they're taking too many chances on storytelling that are kind of like not grounded enough. Like they didn't really
Well,
think about.
I think actually to
Yeah.
kind of like build off that a bit too. I think they're taking chances, but they don't have the guts to follow through
Yes.
because they took a
Like
chance with essentially because they could have put Wanda in that villain-like role. We see there were hints of that throughout the show early on with like the what's his face guy whose name is because he was so forgettable of a character. He was so one note. He became one note by the end of it. Really, the military guy who was like, see, you can't even remember him.
the head of Organist, the head of like the sword guy, the shield guy.
Yeah, exactly. So it's like they had the potential. It was there, but they did not have the guts to really follow through with it. To follow through with like, yeah, heroes can are flawed people too, because they're still human. Doesn't matter how powerful they are, they still have flaws. Because
And the
that's how
sad
villains also become villains. They are normal people who are flawed, who have powers, and they fall to that.
and the
And
sad
Wanda
thing,
technically has been a villain in the comics, by the way. So it
yes.
wouldn't be unheard of to make her a villain. So, because if they want to follow the comics so much as they seem to be trying to do, quote unquote, then have the guts to follow through, put Wanda in this villain light, and make her realize she has no right to inflict her grief on everyone else in a way that actually makes sense.
And the sad thing is that they
Have it be Vision that actually has to be like the the one who actually saves the day. The vision she created has to be the one to snap her out of it because she
Yes.
wouldn't, like so much potential. Have it be no, honestly, I'm just thinking about this now. Imagine if that finale was Wanda, like so desperate to keep her reality that she created, holding all these people hostage and just attacking all the shield or sword, whoever they were called people. And it's Vision and her kids that she created are trying to stop her.
Yes. And the weird
Which
thing is,
technically we already kind of got that anyway in like Doctor Strange, but
yeah.
I don't think we needed that though. I think they could have had a different villain for Doctor Strange and Multiverse of Madness.
Well, they were going to do the fear. Okay, with Multiverse of Madness, they were gonna originally going to do not Dumando. It was another one called, I think, called Nightmare, and it's
Mm.
basically like a night, like a fear demon or something like that. And they did do the fear dimension in Agents of Shield, but
Mm.
Scott Dickerson, Derrickson left the project, that left us, that basically kind of like left the whole void of how do we create a movie called Multiverse of Madness, where basically Doctor Strange having some fun stuff around in that whole multiverse of stuff, and then something's like, and then Sam Raimi comes in and just like does the Sam Raimi stuff. He basically created a horror movie for. You gotta give it up to Sam Raimi. He literally created an Evil Dead movie without the Evil Dead like properties, and people are giving him shit for that because they don't kind of forget like that's Sam Raimi style.
Mm-hmm.
Even in the Holy
Well, I,
Trilogy,
I don't think Sam Raimi should be getting shit for that movie. I think it should just be
yeah,
like whoever at Marvel was like kind of like fiddling with it too, because like it's clear. Like I don't think this was fully what Sam Raimi wanted to do 100%. Because I think a
yeah,
lot of this were additions that Marvel producers were like, no, we have to include the Illuminati because people will freak out seeing these characters. Why? Well, because they brought back all these characters for Spider-Man No Way Home. So of
yeah.
course we have to bring in all of these characters that everyone knows and loves. Even though we're not going to actually do them justice, we're going to have them show up for a couple minutes and then kill them off like they're nothing.
Like the same thing is happening with DC, where it's like the Flash, like literally is that they're trying to say, oh, like people have been
Mm-hmm.
who have been on the Flash like bandwagon of saying, oh, this is bad because of that what happened with Ezra Miller. They're like, oh, this is just because like we're gonna have two Ezra Millers, we're gonna have, but we have a Supergirl, not a Superman, and all this. I was like, okay, first off, that's some bullshit. Okay, first off, I could I can't really surpass what Ezra Miller has done over the past few years, but I believe in what the director Andy. Oh, wait, he is a very Italian name. I'm sorry, Andy. Uh, I believe in the director because the director has also done It Chapter Two, and a few other good movies, Mama, and a couple other like horror movies. I know he could actually make it as a director. Two, I like the idea that they actually brought in Supergirl because Superman has been played out so much. Is that even if they did bring in Henry Cavill for the upteen time and whatnot, like what story can they literally do to make him an interesting character when Superman
Okay, well, let me
itself
ask you
is,
this. Let me ask you this though, because I read the Flashpoint comic that this movie is supposedly based off of, and I've seen the animated movie that was made that is
yeah,
also based off the same material, and that actually does tell an interesting Superman story because it's
yeah,
Superman who is, just a prisoner of the government, who's super scrawny but has that strength and has like once he finally realizes his powers, he kind of goes out of control for a second, and then he leaves. He actually doesn't take part in the big fights until the last minute, where he saves Cyborg's life in the animated movie.
see
Literally
there.
at the last possible second. And he really doesn't even say it to begin with. Cyborg still dies anyway. But it's one of those things where it's
Oh
like
yeah, I forgot about that.
because they literally go to save Superman because they think, oh, this will be our trump card. And then he just pieces out because he's just like, he's been locked up in a government asylum and he freaks out and has to get away from everything and everyone. Kind of what they did in the Justice League movie when they brought Superman back to life, but like, so like you're saying you can do an interesting story with that, but
Yeah,
that's clearly not the direction they're going. They're having to be like, no, it's just going to be a regular team up story where it all works out perfectly fine. But my
well,
biggest problem with this Flashpoint movie they want to do is I don't think they understand what made the source material actually good in the first place. I mean, I feel like they may be trying too hard. It feels like to be
The
like,
problem
okay, like you're like saying from before, oh, we're gonna bring back Michael Keaton's Batman because hey, people like Michael Keaton's Batman,
well, yeah.
even though he's not technically the Batman, he is just like
No, no,
because
no.
he is Tim Burton's version of Batman. And I'm
Although
sorry, like hot take
there will
time,
be
but
people
like
there are people going to say, no, 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 he is the Batman. And then people are like, well, there is only one Batman, but unfortunately, he just passed away.
yeah, by the way, hey, do you all have a problem with Ben Affleck's Batman killing people?
Oh, yeah.
Spoilers, Michael Keaton's Batman does a lot of killing too, but y'all don't say shit about that.
Well,
So
that's just self defense.
hey, double standard. Hence why I call it Tim Burton's
Oh,
Batman, not the
yeah.
Batman, because the Batman doesn't kill people for a reason.
Yeah.
Because he doesn't want to be like the killer who killed his parents.
Mm-hmm. The more I think about it, the more I really don't. Honestly, the more I think about it, the more I just become more uh numb to Batman in the DCU, where he's like he just comes from the point of being a very brutal type of character. And again, Batman has been a brutal character. He has shown that he can become a brutal character, but he never killed people. That was the whole point. He will triple a guy, he will break a guy's leg, he just won't kill him. You know,
Yeah,
well, the hospital bills will kill him, but he won't actually
yeah,
kill him. Hospital
yeah.
bills and
See, honestly, this is why instead of having Michael Keaton play the Tim Burton version of Batman, they should have just had him play the Thomas Wayne Batman. Because one's already gonna be doing so much CGI for those fight scenes anyway. You can tell it's very CGI, and that's fine, nothing wrong with that. But you can get away with that. And also, just imagine Michael Keaton playing a Thomas Wayne Batman who has no versions to killing. Imagine how much more fun that would be.
yeah. But I think the problem with the Flashpoint, though, and again, this problem with No Way Home. I mean, well, actually, yeah, No Way Home, Multiverse of Madness, and the Flash movie all have the problem of villain. Yeah, villain. There we go. The
Both that
villain.
and nostalgia.
Both that and nostalgia. Problem with No Way Home is that there was no villain that kind of like forces Peter outside of the villainness of the public, right? And you could have at least someone like kind of like you could have had Mysterio kind of like fake his own death still, because that was the whole thing with Mysterio. Mysterio's whole stick is that he's the master of illusion. So having him fake his own death, come back and just like a whole hurrah, and then team up with the villains at the end. There you go. There's a whole thing about the villain of No Way Home. Like literally keep Mysterio from a one trick pony of being in one movie to another movie where he actually feels like he could be like a legitimate arch nemesis.
And just imagine, like this, imagine seeing a scene between him, Mysterio, and then Doctor Strange. Where
Yes,
Doctor Strange doing his magic and you get Mysterio getting super jealous.
like considering the whole stick was that Mysterio was supposed to be this magician person from another world. Now, going into Multiverse of Madness, Wander's villainy is really off-putting when we just find out, oh, later in the movie, it's like, oh, it's just the book, the Darkhold has just taken a hold of her and is like making her more uh vendetta, vindictive, all that stuff. The problem with the Flash movie is that the reason why it's called Flashpoint is because of Reverse Flash.
Mm-hmm.
And unless they decide to do this whole thing of, and I really hope I'm not right, really hope that during the movie, Ezra Miller Flash beats up the other Flash played by Ezra Miller, because we all have a funny feeling that he's going to be the other villain in this movie. Because there's
Yeah.
this whole thing about, and plus he's wearing yellow. I really hope they don't do a thing where it's like they pull it from the Flash TV show and we just see Ezra Miller's Flash alternate thing just rip off his
Coming
face.
out of that Savitar costume and then like
No. We just see that it's just Eobard Thawne. Like Eobard Thawne has just been all here all along. He's just been making himself look like he is just Flash of a different era.
Hmm.
which would be an interesting idea, but and then we find out Eobard Thorne is just played by Anthony Starr, but that's
Hmm.
too much wishful.
Hmm.
But
If only Ezra Miller's ego would allow that.
yes, we would actually have an actual villain to go against the Flash, and the reason why he actually does Flashpoint the first time. But the problem is with these stories, and
I mean,
going
I'm
back
just imagining too, like, what if like a selling point for the movie when it comes out is going to be like, look, watch me beat myself up.
honestly, it could work. But I think the problem is with, and going back to what we were saying before, the idea is that Marvel's storytelling has been a problem over the past several years since Endgame. Because with WandaVision, we have problems with WandaVision, like Falcon and the Winter Soldier, because you were saying this before, there could have been a much more of a deeper impact when John Walker killed one of the flag smashers and have him like legitimately still be affected over the fact that he killed someone that Captain America, I'm sorry, not Captain America, he's a U.S. agent. That U.S. agent killed someone because not only had they lose his best friend, who we can like not really know about because they're they're friends and all that stuff. We don't really know about that much of his character other than they're friends, you know. And then
Yeah,
him,
maybe get more than 6 episodes to flesh out character growth and development.
yes. And I think that's another problem is that the super the 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 Marvel shows, specifically in Phase Four, all aside from both WandaVision and She-Hulk, all had 6 episodes, and I think and What If as well. Like What If, it was WandaVision, What If, and She-Hulk all had like random amount of episodes because What If was more or less a animated show. An animated show could be like they could do as many episodes as they want, but every other episode, I mean, every other show, like literally was 6 episodes. And if you create more than 6 episodes, like say 8 or 9, you can actually make it more of a good storytelling. But I think the problem is with,
Exactly.
and I think the problem
Well,
with
even then too, it's like well, even then too, their storytelling still suffered in a lot of regards. Like, what if
yeah,
was one of the decent ones? WandaVision, we know it still suffered. Well,
yeah,
She-Hulk, that also suffered because also it doesn't help when the people writing a show where the main characters, one of their big traits is they're a lawyer, and the writers don't know anything about lawyering.
it also didn't help that She-Hulk was designed as a sitcom, and sitcom,
Mm-hmm.
honestly, a sitcom style superhero show has worked or was almost workable because there was a show called Powerless that was on NBC that was legitimately a sitcom superhero show that basically was about, kind of like like what they do with damage control, like in the comics, damage control was literally a people that kind of like, okay, what's the damage? Okay, we got to figure out all this stuff. Like they were the insurance people of the superhero world. You could literally make that into a good sitcom. Like, okay, what did Hulk do this week? Oh, come on, he torn down a friggin' building. Oh, damn it, Banner. Okay, we got to figure out all that stuff, and then like all the shenanigans with that. With She-Hulk, that's still the character of her being a lawyer, but also the fact that she is also someone who legitimately still sees the reader and and has talked to the writer in numerous issues. Like she can see the fourth wall like Deadpool, but she sees the fourth wall because of her
The
of her
gamma
power.
radiation.
Yeah, the radiation. Like they don't say this in the movies, but Bruce could really see people's auroras. uh, yeah, auroras. Like he could actually can see things in space and time. Like he could probably be able to see things like much more of a more scientific level, whereas Jennifer could really see things more along the lines of a, oh, there's something actually kind of like beyond, like in what's in front of her. Like that's the reason why her character can see the fourth wall and all that stuff too. Where, but yeah,
And then
they
literally break through it and then essentially force the writers to be like, hey, rewrite this. Okay, cool. Which also, no stakes, no consequences. So what's the point?
yeah, I
Like
think
seriously,
it's
like if they want She-Hulk to be like an actual Marvel Avenger character, what's to stop her then from being able to just like, hey, Kang's here. He's destroying the city. Okay, hang on 1 second. Punches through fourth wall, goes to the writer's room and tells him, hey, make Kang a duck with no powers. Okay, problem solved. No stakes, no consequences. Everything's all peachy and good. No lessons learned at all because who needs lessons? Who needs to learn anything? Who needs to learn that, hey, power comes responsibility?
Yeah, but I think there is a and to wrap up this discussion, there is a problem with the Marvel storytelling is that they are desperate to put all in eggs in one basket, right? But they just don't want to pull the trigger in doing all that because it was like, oh, having a villain like Kang win at the end, obviously it would be a big selling point into the next movie. But
Mm-hmm.
but obviously the next movie that's going to happen is Guardians of the Galaxy, Volume 3, and then following that is the Marvels, which will be like the end of this year, and then going into Thunderbolts, and then we won't really because if we and it's weird because like the way that people were saying like the end of the movie was literally was going to be a scene right out of Kang Dynasty, and I was like, you know what? If Quantumania had the balls to do that, then yeah, they should have done that. And but the problem is, I think the problem is that there are a lot of problems with Marvel just storytelling wise, but also from a quantity wise, where it's like the quality of the shows are being pushed out, like what you were saying before, where they were just been like it was just produced cheap. I wouldn't say produced cheaply, but like produced just more like frequently. And I think because of them producing more frequently is becoming a lot more troublesome. And a good example of this is to and also a good way to end the episode is the Arrowverse, right? The Arrowverse really just started with Arrow, right? And then they had a hit show, and then they could figure out, do more with the Flash. And then after the Flash became Legends of Tomorrow, and then after Legends of Tomorrow, they said, okay, we'll just make another show called, Black Lightning. It won't change, it won't like tie into anything. And later it did. Uh, and then later it was like they did the, Batwoman. And then at a point in the CW schedule, it was literally one night it would be Arrow, another night would be the Flash, another night would be Legends of Tomorrow, another night would be Batwoman. And then later it just became like Arrow, Flash, Batwoman, Legends of Tomorrow, all that stuff as stand up like every two things. And and I'm just kind of glad that James Gunn kind of figured out a way to was like, okay, there was definitely a problem with a lot of this stuff, with storytelling, right? And I'm just hoping that Marvel will take a page out DC's page, yeah, and actually slow down with the storytelling and actually do like maybe one or two, maybe like back to the whole one or two movies a year. Because from like if you're pushing out three movies a year, that's where the quality goes down considerably. And I think that's the reason
Yeah.
why Quantumanian's drop really suffered a lot was because, oh, it's like, this movie will probably be on Disney Plus by the end by April. So people were like, okay, well, especially since there's a lot more of a stronger pull to get things more on streaming services.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah,
It just shows that Marvel is like they really desperately want to try and find a way to essentially replace the very iconic characters they had pre-Endgame with a sort of
yeah,
new set. Hence why, because they tried to do that with Eternals, they tried to do that with all these other movies like we got coming out now,
the
with
Turtles.
Thunderbolts, with
I don't
the
remember any,
Marvels, like with
I don't remember the Turtles
huh?
in the. Did you say the Turtles?
The Eternals?
Oh, the Eternal.
Eternals.
I heard Turtles. I was like, I don't remember the. I don't remember any people at one point they were trying to set up some Ninja Turtles. I'm like, I don't remember that.
I mean, honestly, Marvel should try to look into it if they can, honestly, because I think they do a lot better with Ninja Turtles than Eternals. But also, yeah, it's like they're trying to set up all these new sort of like characters who try and take up the mantle, but they're trying so hard. It's too obvious what they're trying to do, and it is falling on its face for the most part, with
Yeah,
only a few exceptions.
yeah. Like I said before, Phase Four was about the grieving process and the ramifications of what happened at the end of Endgame. So you had performances like Oscar Isaac as Mark Spector, Angela Bassett as Queen Ramonda, uh, and a few others. Like, say what you want about Elizabeth Olsen, but like the majority of WandaVision really was like a good performance by her. And then with
Yeah,
with her,
I don't knock her acting at all. I
yeah,
don't knock her acting. I think she did good with it. It's just the
the
story is the
storytelling,
problem.
yeah,
Hmm.
and yeah, I think the reason why there was a drop in the Marvel thing is because there was just a drop in quantity, and but at least Jonathan Majors,
I wouldn't say no. Actually, I would say it's the reverse. There was a drop in quality because there was a rise in quantity.
oh, okay. But at least Jonathan Majors, he's gonna be set for the next few years as both Kang and probably the next. And going from what I hear
Oh, he's
about,
got Creed 3 coming out
yeah, Creed 3's coming out,
like
and he's
tomorrow.
got tomorrow even,
It's
yeah.
like, do you want to watch like Kang versus Killmonger in a boxing ring?
Oh, it's funny how I mentioned. It's funny how, and that's probably another discussion that next week, hopefully next week we'll do is because I do want to go see Creed 3 because especially since not only Michael B. Jordan is directing his first movie, but he said he has been so uh what's the term? He was so influenced by anime fights that he put a lot of the anime fights in Creed 3.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like,
Yeah, I remember seeing an image of someone like taking a still from maybe a trailer or something of one of the punches, and then someone comparing it to a still from Dragon Ball Z, where Frieza did the same exact punch on the character Goku.
so so does that mean Adonis Creed is gonna scream for like 30 minutes and not pull a punch while he is just warming up his next fight? We may never know, but
No.
stay.
It's gonna be no. It's gonna no. If Jonathan Majors is the villain, he's the one who's gonna be screaming and essentially, quote unquote, powering up, while Creed just sits over in the back, just back of the ring, just watching. Like, yeah, do it. Come on, do your thing, man.
Find out next time on Dragon Ball Z.
Next
No,
time
actually,
on Dragon Ball Z. Da-na-na-na-na.
but yeah, that's definitely, and of course, we have Shazam: Fury of the Gods in March, John Wick Chapter 4, uh, Scream 6. Uh, it's like March is just stacked with movies, and
March is looking like a really good month for movies.
yeah, and next time we actually will talk about those movies. So take care, buddy. Please be safe and be well.